Chicago,
Baltimore.
New York.
Baltimore. There's so many places guns are illegal, and guess what? There are so many gun-related killings and murders in those cities. Then, you know, if you do what they're trying to say to do, it's not going to stop the criminals. Period. VCDL came out, I believe it was this week, endorsing me, or last week. But I'm telling you, we've got to find that balance without impacting the rights of our law-abiding citizens. On universal background checks or background checks, back in 2017, I actually went in and closed some of the loopholes in there. Anytime you go to a gun show, there's a state police officer back there with their computer, VSIN is up, and anyone who wants to sell a gun at that gun show, whether they're a personal citizen or anyone else, they can go back there and the police officer will run a background check on that individual that they're trying to sell it to. When I walked in here earlier today, somebody had given me an example at one of the gun shows, and I believe Hampton Roads, that they had caught somebody who they were doing a background check on a felon who was trying to purchase a gun at that gun show, and they were immediately taken over by the state police. They got involved and took care of that issue. That means it worked. That means that eliminating that loophole worked. One of the other loopholes is if I had an FFL and I wanted to sell something out of my personal inventory, it was illegal or against law for me to run a background check on somebody if it was out of my personal inventory. The only way I could do it is if I would have put it into, out of my personal collection. The only way it would have been legal, I'd have to put it into my inventory and then sell it through that way, and then you have to pay transfer taxes and all that. I got rid of the loophole. I just said, if you're an FFL dealer, you can actually run a background check on anybody, anytime, anywhere, if you're going to sell a gun. Whether it's a personal gun, whether it's one you have on consignment, whether it's one you've got in inventory, whether it's one that you're transferring in to sell, whatever the reason, you can run that background check on that individual.
My question now,
So it's
also
legal.
homeless people. Is that a fact?
Oh, the homeless people. So mental health and homeless is a major issue. There are some folks, though, who truly they have the ability to work. Some of them do work. Some of them choose to live where they do, whether it's in a tent. Others are there by unfortunate circumstances. A lot of them don't get the medication they need. Some of them do have the medication they need. But it's a mess. It's something that we've got to figure out a solution to, and we continue to work on it. Our homeless population, I believe, based on the city's record, has gone down in the last couple of years, not gone up. And we have things like Vet's House, and I was a huge supporter of this, both before city council and on city council, and ever since, where we take homeless veterans off the streets, put them in a program where they get trained up, and then they've got a place to live for the next 18 months while they're getting on their own. But we have a lot of things like that we've been working on. Any other good questions? Yeah, we'll take some new people. Lady back here.
I heard you didn't do anything after the shooting at the municipal center. Is that true?
No, that's another false thing. Right after the shooting happened, I was down there in the EOC, and I was there for the next pretty much week and a half. And I was helping coordinate everything from the state level with the city, and then every single meeting I said, the state's here, we're here to support you, whatever you need, however we can help, talk to me and we'll make it happen. Then we spent about 45 days before we went into special session. I introduced 27 pieces of legislation, more than any other legislator in the entire state, House or Senate, 27 pieces. We did memorial resolutions, we did commending resolutions, we did things to stiffen penalties on any crime dealing with a gun. We did things to stiffen penalties on anything and everything we could. We tried to detract and detour people from committing crimes with a gun. On the other side, we wrote up and spent a lot of time working on this, the outline and guides of how we get a mental health study or a study done to figure out what are the indicators, what are the issues, what can we do better, what can we learn from any other state or jurisdiction or city, town, county that had a mass shooting, mass killing, any mass-related incident with mass casualties, what can we do better? What can we learn from them, and how can we use that and the lessons learned out of there to implement in the state of Virginia? So to say I did nothing is not accurate at all.
Thank you.
We'll go right back here.
Medicaid expansion, how are we gonna pay for that, and your stance on it that everybody is bringing up to the negative?
All right, so I didn't support Medicaid expansion. The number one reason I didn't is we took the, I think it was 13 or 26,000 people, I forgot which number off the top of my head, who were waiting for Medicaid slots or Medicaid waivers. We jumped over them and expanded it for everybody else. So in my opinion, in my heart, I think we should take care of those who can't take care of themselves first. Instead of taking care of those, we jumped over them, did it for everybody else, and then we said, oh, we're not going to handle this population. That's wrong. I'll say that's wrong every day, all day long. That's why I vote against it. Until we cover them, we shouldn't be covering anybody else. Sorry, that's just how I feel.
Okay, one of my questions is supposed to be, is it true to treat puppies, but I'm not going to answer that right
Well, I know where that came
now.
from.
But I'm not going to ask that. That's not my question. One of my questions, well, my question is that one of our bright-eyed, ambitious city council members wanted to put a resolution to ban guns in municipal buildings. And that was supposed to go towards the General Assembly.
Let's talk about that for a second. So, Building 2 within our municipal complex, with the exception of City Hall, guns are banned. Silencers are banned being on a weapon in Virginia Beach. High-capacity magazines are banned being in your weapon in Virginia Beach. So it was already banned. Guns were already not allowed in Building 2. You can't get any more restrictive than a ban by the city saying you can't have a weapon in this building. Criminals don't follow the rules. Criminals break the law. It was already banned. You couldn't have them there. Sorry. I think that, again, you can't get more restrictive than that. And as soon as that happened, we put out, now's the time for our thoughts and prayers. My opponent and other folks put, now's the time for action. We don't need thoughts and prayers. I have to disagree. I think that we have to think logically. I think we need to get the subject matter experts who are the professionals, not just from law enforcement, but from everywhere else, to get engaged, get involved, and help direct this. I would not go in and say, I don't want doctors to be able to do this procedure in the state of Virginia without first talking to a doctor or many doctors to understand what the subject matter experts feel on this. I do want to answer your question, and I know where that question came from. I hate puppies. But I don't hate puppies. I put in the bill 1604 last time, which said if you beat or torture a dog, it's a felony whether the dog dies or not. What we find is when somebody beats or tortures an animal, and it was not just a dog, it was a dog, cat, and if you beat or torture an animal, then you are going to, escalate that up. Traditionally, we'll escalate that up into something else. And here's 3 examples in the state of Virginia. The first one, Sugar. Down here, we had Sugar, who the owner took a machete to that dog. Within 6 months, I think it was, he did the same with his wife. He didn't chop up his wife, but he took the same, a similar machete after his wife. Young man up in Northern Virginia, teenager, stabbed his dog. Within a year, he stabbed 2 family members. There's a problem that we need to address as soon as it pops up. That's one of them. If you beat or torture an animal. There's another one, and this is probably one of the most heinous. They would beat their dog with a bat, and the dog had so many broken legs and fractures and everything else that they were doing the same to their children. They had 2 kids, and these 2 children weren't, we didn't even know they had 2 kids. Animal control, in the way they found the abuse of the dog, was when they went in and raided the house, they found they had 2 kids. They didn't even know they had 2 kids living there. They didn't go to school, there was nothing to do with it, and these were kids that should have been multiple years in school at that point in time. So when people do things like that, we've got to come down with the harshest, stiffest penalties allowed by law. We need to come down with a hammer on stuff like that. We've got to stop that from happening.
I'm glad I asked this question, because now this is kind of a follow-up.
But on the puppies, let me answer that. That came from, we had a puppy bill a while ago that said, and it was a puppy bill. It said it was okay to keep dogs in cages at pet shops or pet facilities, and they would mate the dogs and breed the dogs in those pens, and the dogs never, like, they spent their entire life in the pen or in the cages in the stores, and then they'd sell the puppies out front. Well, I think it's inhumane to have dogs entire lives stuck in these little cages, and that their sole purpose was to breed and sell their puppies. I don't believe that was right, so I voted against that. So I love puppies, I love dogs. My dog is a spoiled brat. But on the other hand, I don't think it's humane to breed dogs and sell the puppies out front of a pet store. I just don't think it's right.
Well, I mean, to follow up on that too, and I'm a part of a Facebook group that is, and I'm very terrified of pit bulls. And I think in everything there is an exception. And among those in the group, there are always stories of pit bulls mauling someone. There have been multiple offenses and nothing happens to the owner. So I know people love dogs, and I understand that, and I think it's great. I think no one should ever stab a dog or beat a dog, but there needs to be some protection from the general public. Because my dad walks with a cane, he can't walk too well, and people let these pit bulls out and run the neighborhood, and oh, it's a sweet little dog, but until they kill someone, it's too late. So how many? I saw that in the news, and the first thing I thought was, well, what's the protection for the general public, John Q. public, to not be mauled to death by a dog that someone deems sweet?
That we have dangerous dogs, we have vicious dogs, and I'm trying to remember, there's like 3 portions of that law. But we harshened the penalties on that a couple of years ago, and part of the problem on that was the way it was being reported. So that's one thing we fixed. I want to say I did a legislation on that 3 years ago or 2 years ago to fix that thing. You know, you have to have a dog on a leash in Virginia Beach. You know, there's a whole thing unless the dog's in a fenced area or in a dog park, or there's a bunch of exceptions to that. But we have leash laws. If a dog is a dangerous dog, so if a dog has bit somebody, a lot of times what people will do is they'll report the dog, the name of the dog, and then if there's a second incident, they'll change the name of the dog, and they'll change their name. And we've caught on to that, and through the law, we figured out a better way to do that. We had another one where there was a pit bull that was came out of New York, Pennsylvania to Virginia. Each time it said, oh, the dog has been rehabilitated, and that dog actually killed an elderly lady. We actually tightened down that law too with the whole tracking process on dangerous or vicious dog. So we've had a lot of bills that we've focused on fixing little things like that. Again, every year people come to us with recommendations on bills. We work with them on that. We love working with them on that. It can be something as easy or simple as, you know, license plate bills to as harsh as, torturing dogs or people torturing animals and children and things like that. So we try to cover the whole gamut of everything, and I rely on our subject matter experts out there to make sure I don't mess them up too bad. Now.
Yeah, thank you, Senator, for coming before us and articulating your positions. I appreciate that. City Council was brief not too long ago that we still don't know the reason for the tragedy. And but I'm very concerned about minority engineers trying to work in our real world environment. And I'm sure you've gotten some reports that the public meetings that the corporation has hosted, that the toxic work environment phrase has popped up a number of different times. And I also heard the city's position that, yeah, you hear that from 10% of the city employees. What I'm concerned about is HR, human resources. Their job is to conduct analytics of the work environment and focus in on troubled areas. I understand the HR in Virginia Beach because I work with this city on a number of different areas. And I've pulsed them, what's your perspective of HR? It's not very good. HR is not doing their job in the city of Virginia Beach. My question to you is, can there be like a certification or a license for an HR director to be fully qualified to do work environment analytics in order to identify these kind of situations? You mentioned a little bit about frustrations in the mental health arena, and I just feel that working with minority engineers, I sense easily their frustration, and I understand that. And I believe that's probably what happened in Building 2. Here again, HR added to that frustration. Although I believe certain individuals know what took place, understand what took place, but it's a difficult situation because of nobody wants to be labeled as the race-related or anything associated with racism. But here again, we're all human beings. We have nurse practitioners are licensed and certified. Why can't the HR directors be licensed and certified in the Commonwealth of Virginia?
You should be.
And I think that DePor licenses HR professionals. I don't know that for a fact, but I can check into that, but I'm pretty sure they do already, Al. I was trying to understand the whole engineering side of this. Now, it sounds like you've got a whole bunch of stuff put together in there. I'm trying to dissect to get to questions. But I'm pretty sure DePor has a human resources professional occupancy license. Because DePor is Department of Professional Occupancy Licenses, and I'm sure they have it for HR individuals. I just have to pull it up and check.
Yeah, to give you a specific example without naming names, in a particular department, the manager submitted to HR, we have 3 potential employees. We want to hire these people. And HR overruled management by bullying the management that we have somebody else that we want to put in those positions. And those people came outside the department. And as you probably know, even in the Navy, we try to promote people from within. You train them, they have the experience, they're seasoned, they're matured in their responsibilities, so you really want to promote from within. When you bring in a person from the outside, there's initial antagonism because you always ask, is that person more qualified? In the the black engineer situation, the person selected was not as qualified as the black engineer, to be very blunt.
Okay, I'm not sure the question with that. I'm not going to get into personnel, HR related issues from a city council perspective because I'm at the state level. I will tell you that I'm pretty sure DePor, which is a state level agency that does regulations for everything from barbers to anestheticians to financial to contractors to everything else, dentists and doctors, I'm pretty sure we already have that. Let's hit over here, then back, and over to that.
I just want to say, I just looked up on DePor, they don't have.
Nothing for HR?
No.
Okay, then I can look into that and talk to the head of DePor and figure it out. But I know for HR, you have to have certain regulatory things. So I'd have people saying, yes, absolutely. I'm gonna have to look into that and see.
I think they have certifications, but actual licensing as a board to have a complaint, there is none.
Okay.
It's just certification classes.
Certifications,
It
classes.
should